Hello, this is the Harvard Night. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So, reach out to me. Feedback, questions, comments, concerns, show ideas. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll link all of the possibilities to do that in this episode. So, some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Pandora, I'm on iHeartRadio, I'm on Amazon Music, just to name a few. Okay, so this episode is all about my thoughts about product placement. And on next week, I'm going to go into more details and facts about it, about the history of it and so forth, and the psychological aspects of product placement. All right, so here we go. Okay, so my thoughts about product placement. I think it's quite clever and interesting how in cinema and I remember it was in the headlines in the news, and I'm gonna run through that on Monday about that with games using the influence of product placement in their in their video games and with music videos. So, and some of the research that I'm reading right now, and I'm going to go in further depth about that on Monday. It says that, that the aspects of having a movie, a television show, or so forth, it blurs the lines with the aspects of keeping things in their lane. And what I mean by that is you're taking away from the artistic expression of the movie. So, for instance, now, E.T. wasn't the first movie to have the aspects of product placement. It came long before then. But E.T. is very familiar and very noticeable and reputable to many people. So E.T. was one of those things where, a blockbuster hit, and it stayed in the movie theaters for a long time. And then even with Mac and Me, with the spinoff of E.T., it had the advent of having advertisement, product placement in the movie. So for instance, in Mac and Me, it was all about McDonald's, showcasing that and promoting McDonald's to the point of having, it was the 80s here, a cheesy dance-off and the one of the scenes of Mac and Me. Okay, so we transitioned to E.T., and the big heavy hitter product placement for E.T. is Reese's Pieces. And so, to me, I think that product placement is one of those things that, some of the research that I've read so far says, it's the evil necessary. But I would say that's a little hyperbolic. I would say that, I don't know, it's one of those things that advertisement is a circumstance of commercialism or capitalism in the world that we're living in. You just, you got to see it for what it is and take it for what it is. And it's up to you to have that, the juxtaposition or the stance that you want to have about the aspects of advertisement in our society. Now, I would say, like I said about on Saturday, when I talked about advertisement on Substack, I said, I'm paraphrasing here. I'm just running out a summary about everything that I said. So for the most part, I was making commentary about the aspects that advertisement is not as prevalent as it is in America. And so when we break those things down and we get into the aspects of what that means here, I think that it's when advertisement it's meaningful, it serves a purpose, and it makes commentary about the world around us, or it has an overall storytelling, and it represents the brand in a new way, then that's sustainable. And then also making commentary about the social aspects of its day and time. And so Adidas was really good about that, with the aspects of influences, wrapping itself around the aspects of hip hop culture and stuff like that. And so, I'm gonna get into music and the aspects of it, but I think like I made the statement that I did on Saturday. You get into you gotta know when to quit. With certain things, when you get into aspects of saying that it's okay to, just like we have today with medical advertisement. And see, that's something that should be in the realm of talking and to your physician about it. This shouldn't be something that's just freely advertised. Those drugs and medical drugs here, that's what I'm talking about, medical drugs here, are in the realm that they're very personable to the person. I'm being repetitive, but I'm just serving the purpose that should be understood, and that should be common sense. But common sense fails a lot of people now. But hey, things are getting better, so So yeah, and then when you get into aspects too of education and so forth, that's a very complicated issue. And that, when in the sense of the aspects of career goals here. So not everything is quite the same for everybody. And then a lot of people don't understand, not everybody learns the same. And then, different universities should, pride themselves or have themselves in the aspects of commercializing their university. You shouldn't see education as a product. You should see education as a pursuit, it speaks for itself, and it's up to you to decide what paths you want to take with all of these things. And so when we get into product placement here, I think, again, it's one of those things that really holds deep into the consciousness of, that certain culture. Okay. So, when I was coming up in the 90s, there was a lot of very experimental things that were going on with the aspects of advertisement. And so there was a lot of, I remember Terminator, when Terminator was with Laura Croft, with, y'all know who I'm talking about. So the Sarah Connor, okay? And, it was a lot of different aspects of things, or transitioning things with the aspects of promoting that and product placement in that movie too. And so that transitions a lot into the aspects of the Matrix. There was, some aspects of, when you get into the aspects of using the movie as a vehicle to promote, to release merchandise, where in the aspects of video games, it was really good at that, merging those worlds together. Now, before then, I think Tron was one of the first movies that really, honed that in. It was very, very, very self-aware, especially with the aspects of technology in the time, and how that was very prevalent video games at that time in the 80s, because especially with youth and youth culture, it was centered around going to arcades and the aspects of new technologies that came out of the video game industry. And that was very forefront on their end to do it. And, it's unfortunate Disney, but Disney is unfortunate the way Disney is. But for the forefront, Disney is one of the companies that, of course, I'm paraphrasing here, that prides themselves on being the cusp of an awareness of the alternative or the counterculture into where it's, mainstreamly acceptable to each generation here. And there's something to say about that. And so on to music videos here. Music videos is a really good way in itself into promoting certain things into the mainstream culture, and that changes the aspects of how things are viewed in the perspective of that sense. So what am I saying here? So for instance, around the 2000s or so, and even before then, well, let me get into the aspects again with brands and how that leaks into the aspects of product placement with brands and brand loyalty, and how it's associated with a certain look and a certain je ne sais quoi, so to speak, with genres of music. So, for instance, Tommy Hilfiger was very prevalent, and then, you get into that very niche fashion design of FUBU. But for the most part, before FUBU came out, Tommy Hilfiger was the go-to look for the hip hop culture, and so that gave a stark transition to what Tommy Hilfiger. Well, I mean, it is different in certain companies, but it gave a new perspective about the aspects of Tommy Hilfiger, because Tommy Hilfiger was, preppy chic culture for the most part. And so to be associated with an image of hip hop culture that gave it a sort of an urban flair, to where people started to take more notice of Tommy Hilfiger, and it became more mainstream. And so, when you, again, with artists like Gwen Stefani and Akon merging together, and when the music video That Would Be Sweet and so forth, there was a lot of very obvious product placement in there with the aspects of the automobile industry. The vehicles that were displayed in that music video, you could tell, it was, again, the aspect of changing the perspective about these different companies, and how it's on the pulse of change, and then centering itself around the aspects of youth culture. And there's something to say about that too. And so when we get into the aspects of game shows and things of that so forth, I've read some things about that, and that I think it's just a very clever, a clever transition into just doing, when it was in the beginning of, the aspects of product placement and so forth. So they were clever into just running an obvious commercial ad about a product. You would have the contestant, and would have the celebrity or so forth promoting the product, and in a sense it would give a general aspect to me about brand loyalty. So I'm going to get into more depth right now about brand loyalty. So brand loyalty can really, be one of those things that are very clever, and it's very tricky at the same time. So that there is a self-awareness, when people go into the grocery store, whether they want to admit that or not. Well, some people are forthcoming about that, but, people are particular, so, it is what it is with that. So, when you go into the supermarket and you're saying, oh, no, I don't particularly like this brand because of either word of mouth or your experience with the product, or even because of what the mainstream culture is saying that this is really relevant to use. And so you make those decisions, consciously make those decisions when you go into the grocery store or so forth. Now, a really good prime example of this, about the aspects of brand loyalty and how that can transition and change the identity of with the aspects of product placement is Macs versus Windows PC. So even, Macs, when in its beginnings, heyday, even now, you can argue that question that the products aren't all that great, it was very, very funny in college. It was this one guy said that Macs, particularly with the computers and so forth, are essentially Fisher Price computers. They're not, it's not something that you would use or go to if you're really tech savvy, or you're really, you have a awareness of what you need in order to get your goals, accomplish your goals with technology here. And so Steve Jobs and Wozniak, they teamed up together, and there was a lot of controversy in the aspects of them teaming up together. For the most part, Steve Jobs was very clever in the aspects of knowing that it is telling a narrative about something can really spin the aspects of a product. And so he did, as I mentioned earlier in other podcasts, with the aspects of the 1984 ad that they ran through the Super Bowl about Macintosh. That was very clever because, again, the book 1984, the Orwellian view about this dystopian viewpoint of Big Brother is looking at us. So, this meta thing where, hey, technology can be at the forefront of breaking all those walls about this society in which we live in. And then, as I mentioned, the aspects of using a well-known, a very well-respected director, Ridley Scott, to direct the commercial. It's, as they say, the rest is history here. And so, when we get into aspects of iPods and then we get into aspects of the Mac versus PC with Justin Long commercials, they in itself really presented a different perspective about the aspects of how influential Apple changed about technology to the forepoint of where if you own Apple products, where it be a computer, a PC computer, or where it be a laptop, or where it be a cell phone, you are in itself showcasing your affluence in society. And so Mac, it was really good about that, about linking themselves to certain movies, to the Hollywood, and then to television shows, and then really pushing that mainstream perspective about how relevant Apple is, and how Apple is again has its finger on the pulse, and really is the in touch sort of device that you need to, perform any sort of aspects or office aspects that you need, all the way to graphic design and so forth. And then, not escaping the reality situation out there. There are technology companies that are very they're very ethical in their pursuits of business aspects of doing things, but there's different shades of blood on their hands on a lot of ends with technology companies here. But for the most part, you hear all of the aspects of all the horrors and everything that goes on, with overseas about specifically in China and so forth, with the aspects of building these products, that they're makeshift products and really not as technologically sound as it's claiming it is to be. But, people, again, they still buy with the apply into the product placement of what was represented to them in culture, that Apple products are of the here and now, and it is very necessary, and you'll get your bang for your buck with Apple products. Now, it's quite interesting with the aspects of the technology with music. So Apple has Pulse and kicking out the aspect of Zoom. Zoom I think it came out before the iPod here. And on Zoom, I was discussing this with my husband some time back. Zoom, you could even see videos. You can do so many. It was, as far as the aspects of user-friendly and the interface, you could do so many things on it. And so with iPod, it was just, low-tech. You got songs. And then with the aspects, I don't understand this. Y'all have to explain this to me. You already paid so much for the product, and then they convince people to make it notable to pay more for songs when that should be a free source catalog on your iPod for what be part of the price that you pay. But it's one of those things, again, and the aspects of buying into the product placement of what is going on to either product placement of what you've seen in your favorite movies, your favorite television, the commercials, and how that seeps into your subconscious about these sort of things. And so there's really something to be said about this. And I'm going to end on that. I'd like to know what y'all, feel free to reach out to me. And I have these links about the aspects of product placement in our society, and then in general about product placement. Feel free to reach out to me, as I said. And I do respond. So it's very helpful when you do reach out. All right, this one is a bit short here because, I didn't want to go into too much in depth about everything. I'm just, giving you the bare bone here about my thoughts on it. And then I'm going to go into more details on next week, as I said. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Bye-bye for now.